Hello and thank you for watching. I'm Ashley Van Dyke with Advantage Software, and on today's video, Getting to Know Eclipse Part 2, we will go over how to write Realtime to Eclipse. Writing Realtime directly into Eclipse offers many benefits. It allows you to use many automatic features like autobrief, gives you a much easier way to read back during testimony, and there's no need to read in and translate your notes after a job. As soon as you're done writing, you can begin editing your file with Eclipse. Additionally, when writing Realtime directly into Eclipse, you have the option of using advanced audio sync features that are not available when using audio directly from your steno machine. Writing Realtime in Eclipse is as simple as connecting your steno machine to your computer and installing any required software, and then setting the correct settings in the Input tab of your user settings in Eclipse. Next, I'm going to show you how to set up those settings. Now I'm in Eclipse and I'm going to show you where you can go to set up your settings to communicate with your writer in Realtime. You're going to go to Settings or Alt-U, go to the Input tab, and at the top of this window, the first selection you need to make is for your steno machine. Where it says Writer, you want to choose the type of writer that you use. Most writers are in this list. If your writer is not in this list, you can contact tech support, or it may be listed in your manual which writer you should use. In this case, I'm using a Passport Touch, so I'm going to leave my selection selected at Passport Touch. After selecting the steno machine type, you next need to select how Eclipse is going to communicate with your steno machine. In this instance, I know that since I'm using a Passport Touch, it's going to be set to COM port. However, some other writers can be set to USB port instead. If I click the Realtime From drop-down list, there are several options. The most commonly used are COM port and USB port. Whether your writer uses COM port or USB port depends on what type of writer it is, what settings the writer is set to, and how you're communicating with it. If you're communicating with your writer via Bluetooth, it will generally be a COM port. However, if you're communicating with your writer via a USB cable, it may be COM port or USB port depending on the writer. To check this, you can press the Setup button. And right now, I have some settings in my port setup window. I don't know if they're correct though. So what I'm going to do is press the Device Manager button so I can see if my writer is loaded onto my computer. And since I know that my device is likely to be a COM port device or a USB device, the first thing I'm going to check for is the section for COM ports. If I scroll down, I do see a section that says Ports, COM, and LPT. And if I hit the arrow next to this to expand it, I see my writer listed on COM port 3. However, if I didn't see anything under COM port, what I would want to look for is another category down here that says something like USB steno machine. If I saw something like that, I would know that I'd want to come back into Eclipse and set my Realtime From to USB port instead of COM port. But my writer is definitely a COM port writer, so I'm going to set my Realtime From to COM port. And referring back to my device manager, my writer is on COM port number 3. So if I hit Setup next to Realtime From COM port, you see that my port number is set to number 3. The baud rate, parity, data bits, and stop bits will all be set automatically when you choose the correct steno machine, so you don't need to worry about changing those. Now that I have this set on COM 3, I can press OK, and if I hit Test, and then start from the last stroke, I see that when I hit new strokes on my steno machine, they are coming up just fine. So I know that now Eclipse is ready to communicate with my steno machine, and I can start Realtime. After setting up your writer communication settings and using the Test button in the Input tab to ensure that your steno machine will work, there are two ways that you can start Realtime. The first will create a file with an automatic name based on your user settings. If you go to Alt-U, Realtime, there is an option that says Auto Rename Realtime Jobs to. And here it has a file name format that will automatically be assigned to files that you start using the Instant Realtime button. The file name will be RT, month, day, year, hyphen, hours, and minutes. That way you'll always know when any of these instant files were created. And this will be the date and time that the file was created when you hit the Realtime button. If Auto Rename Realtime Jobs is checked, when you close out of these automatically named jobs, it will prompt you to enter a new name. So this option is great if you like the convenience of simply hitting a single button to start Realtime, but you want to be able to control what your file names are. When you're done with the file and you close out of it, it'll automatically prompt you to rename it as long as this box is checked. If it's not checked, the file will simply retain the original automatic name and you can rename it later if desired. The other way to start Realtime is through the Translate button. The Translate button contains all of your translation settings. These settings are the same settings that are used when you hit the Instant Realtime button. So it's a good idea to get these settings set the way that you want them before you start using the Instant Realtime button. However, if you don't want to use the Instant Realtime button for some reason, you can always just start jobs using the Translate Notes window. If you're doing Realtime, the most important thing to remember is that you choose Realtime under translation modes. You don't want to choose Tran and Edit or Quick Tran. Those are used when you're translating files from your steno machine after the fact. All of the settings that are set here will remain selected until they're changed. So if I now turn on Record Audio, I will record audio in my new jobs. If I have Show Statistics checked, a box containing my translation statistics will show up. The statistics are also available in the info bar on the left-hand side of my screen, but some people prefer to see them in both places. I'll go ahead and leave that turned on to show you what that looks like. Make Edit Station Info will copy all of the conflicts you write into the job dictionary so that when you send it to your scopist, they'll be able to select the conflicts. This isn't necessary if they have an updated and complete copy of your main dictionary, but if you frequently add conflicts or if you've never sent a scopist your dictionary, you'll want to have Make Edit Station Info checked so that they get that conflict information to make editing much faster and easier. If Phonetic Untrans is checked, your untrans will come out phonetically. If it's not checked, they will come out in steno unless Eclipse translates them using something like Translation Magic. If Enable Output is checked, any outputs that you have selected under your user settings in the Realtime tab will be enabled. Right now I don't have any outputs, however I'm going to leave Enable Output checked because if I do add outputs, I want them to be enabled automatically. I don't want to start them manually. If for some reason you do want to manually dial for a closed caption encoder, for instance, you can uncheck Enable Outputs to have that option available. However, typically it's recommended that Enable Output just remain checked. Prompt for starting stroke will prompt you at the beginning of each job to start from the last, the first, or another stroke in the currently open job on your steno machine. If you want to start fresh from whatever you begin writing after you start the Realtime file, you'll want to choose last. If you had to start writing the job before you were able to get Realtime going, you may want to choose first to dump everything you had to write before Realtime was connected. Other allows you to select a specific stroke to start from. If you don't have prompt for starting stroke checked, Eclipse will always just start Realtime from the last stroke, so will only include new information that you write after the file has opened. Share Document with Connection Magic allows you to automatically open the window that will share your document over Connection Magic with your scopist. If you forget to check this, don't worry, you can always share it after the fact. However, if you always share your document with your scopist, you can check this file to make sure that that window comes up automatically each time. At the bottom of the Translate Notes window are the initial and final block options. These are always checked by default. What this allows you to do is to automatically bring in block files at the beginning and at the end of your file. If there is no file name listed to the right of the initial and final block buttons, then these options are not doing anything. However, if I click Initial Block, go to my Blocks folder, and choose, for instance, Title, now Every time I start a Realtime file, it will bring in the title.ecl file. If I choose Final Block, go to Blocks, and choose my cert file, it will now automatically bring in the certificate page at the end of my file when I stop translation, so that I don't have to do it manually. If you always use the same block files at the beginning and end of your file, these are great options to employ. If you ever don't want to use them, you can simply uncheck the box before you start Realtime and they'll be omitted. If you want to change them, you can click the initial block button and select a different file. And if you'd like to get rid of them entirely so that they no longer come in, you can hit the initial block button and simply hit cancel. I'll hit Final Block and hit cancel, and now both of these files have been removed, and even if initial block and final block are checked, nothing will come in. Initial block and final block are totally optional. After deciding on all of the options for your Realtime file in this window, you can then choose how you want to name the file. There are 3 ways to do so. You can hit the Notes and Text button to select a note file name or a text file name, and you can simply type in a new name, or if you'd like to append to an existing file, you can choose that file to append to it or overwrite it. However, generally speaking, you're going to be creating a new file. So you would want to hit the Notes or Text button and simply type in a new name down at the bottom. Or, without going into Notes or Text, you can simply hit the OK button. This is my method of choice because I think it's simpler. So I'll press OK. It will tell me that I do need to name the file to translate, and I'll press OK again. But if I don't want to see this message, I can always check Don't Show This Message again. And now I'm brought to a window where it prompts me to name the file. I'll call this file Realtime Test and press OK. Since I had prompt for starting stroke checked, it asked me if I want to start from last, first, or other. I'm going to go ahead and choose last because I only want my new strokes. And as soon as I choose last, I'm brought into a Realtime file. And you see that my Realtime statistics box has opened. And if I write steno into the file, the statistics box updates at the same rate that the statistics in my info bar update. Whichever version of this information you'd like to use is fine, or if you prefer using both versions, you can. At the bottom left of my screen is my audio bar, since I did have record audio enabled. On the right-hand side of my screen is my note bar. And on the left-hand side of my screen is my info bar. When my cursor is on a word, I get regular info bar options to edit it. And when I write on my steno machine, the info bar continues to update all of my Realtime statistics. At the top of my screen, you see that the file name I selected, realtimetest.ecl, is listed here next to my version and username. And at the bottom of my screen, my status bar indicates my page count, my cursor location, and the time code associated with my cursor location. Additionally, I have my INS OVR indicator, and I see that I have ITE listed. ITE means that I am inputting, translating, and editing all at once. This means that I am doing Realtime. I am inputting my steno to Eclipse, I am translating that steno, and I have access to edit that steno simply by going into Eclipse and making any edits that I would like to make. I can type in text, I can global text, and I can do anything else that I need to, even though I'm in Realtime. Once I'm done with the Realtime file, there are 2 ways that I can end Realtime. I can press Shift-Alt-T to immediately stop translation and remain in the file so that I can immediately begin editing, or I can close the file. If I close the file, it will prompt me to ensure that I am done translating, and then it will close the file completely. So I'll go ahead and hit Control-Q, or you can hit the X at the top right of Eclipse to close, or you can go to File and close. However, I'll hit Control-Q. I'll confirm that I do want to stop the translation. And once it informs me that the translation is complete and I press OK, the file automatically closes, since I issued a close command instead of a stop translation command. I'm going to start a new translation. I'll call this one Realtime Test 2. And you see that at the top, again, it shows my file name, Realtime Test 2. And this time, I'm going to stop the translation by pressing Shift-Alt-T or by going to Production, Stop Translation. I'll press Shift-Alt-T. It tells me the translation is complete, and this time when I press OK, I remain in the file. However, my audio has stopped recording and accumulating data, and my statistics will no longer update because the Realtime is finished. Once I'm done editing in this file, or once I'm done doing whatever I'd like to do with it, I can simply hit Control-Q to close. And since I'm not in Realtime, it doesn't confirm that I should end the Realtime, it just closes the file. Starting Realtime through the Translate Notes window is easy and gives you total control over all of your translation settings, as well as your file name. Using the Instant Realtime button will, as I described earlier, start a file with the automatic Realtime file name. Right now I don't have Auto Rename Realtime Jobs checked, so I'm going to hit the Realtime button to start a file. And since I have Prompt for Starting Stroke checked in my Translate Notes window, it does prompt me to start from which stroke. I'll choose last again for this demonstration, and it immediately begins taking my steno strokes. At the top, you see that my file name is RT, the date and time that I started the file. You see that it matches my current date and time exactly. And if I close out of this file by hitting Control-Q, it confirms again that I want to stop the translation. The translation has completed, and when I press OK, the file simply closes. If I go to my file manager, you see that I now have the Realtime Test 2, but I also have the RT 0902200956 file that I just started and stopped. At this point, I can rename the file by hitting Rename and typing in another file name. However, if I don't want to have any files with this RT date and time name, I can automatically rename those files every time I close them. If I return to my user settings, go to the Realtime tab and check Auto Rename Realtime Jobs, whenever I close one of these files, I'll be prompted to rename it. So I will start a new file using the Instant Realtime button. I'll start from the last stroke again. And you see that at the top, my file name is RT 0902200957, which represents the current date and time. And this time, if I hit Control-Q to close the file, yes to agree to stop the translation, OK to the translation complete message, the file closes and I'm prompted to rename the file. I'm going to call this one Realtime Test 4. And if I press OK and go to Tools, File Manager, you see that I have my Realtime Test 4 instead of the RT0902 name. And it has automatically renamed the notes, the ECL, and the audio file. Both of these translation options make it easy to control your file, and Instant Realtime is particularly easy if you need to save a little bit of time when you're starting Realtime. If you know that your translate options are set up correctly in Translate Notes, you can simply hit the Instant Realtime button and get going. If you don't want to waste time starting from first or last, simply uncheck Prompt for Starting Stroke. And as soon as you get into your file in Eclipse, you can immediately begin writing. And since I changed the Prompt for Starting Stroke setting in the Translate Notes window, that change is going to carry over to the Instant Realtime button. If I press the Instant Realtime button to start Realtime, as soon as my writer is recognized, I can begin writing without making any selections. And as soon as I close this file, since I have Auto Rename Realtime files checked, I'll be prompted to rename my file. And so now I have a neat series of files with names that I have completely controlled despite starting them in different ways. Eclipse gives me complete control over how real-time communication works and how my files are named. Writing Realtime is truly as simple as going to your user settings to the Input tab and ensuring that your real-time communication settings are set up correctly. And after making sure your settings are correct, you can simply choose Translate, make sure Realtime is selected, Make sure all of your other options are correct and hit OK. Alternatively, you can also just hit the Instant Realtime button to be taken directly into a file. Whatever method works best for you works best for Eclipse. Thank you for watching this video. It is just a basic guide on getting started to writing Realtime in Eclipse. Many of our users still haven't taken advantage of this amazing time-saving feature. If you need any help getting Realtime set up or have questions about any of Eclipse's other great features, please don't hesitate to contact Advantage Software's Anytime Support 24/7. Support can be reached anytime, including weekends and holidays, at 772-288-3266. Email support is also available at support@eclipsecat.com. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already and turn on notifications so that you'll be notified when we publish new videos. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.